Welcome in, everybody. Welcome in to Get Process, a Sixers post-game show. If you're coming home from the Wells Fargo or enjoyed a nice night on the couch and we're maybe we'll see a good game tonight, you saw a great game tonight. Dominant big man versus dominant big man. You got the Joker versus Embiid. Hell of a game. Sixers win big time, 126 to 121. Dominant fourth quarter by Joel Embiid was the pretty much the turning point of this game. I'm here with the man. If you have not been following him on Twitter at Sean_Bernard one, you're a moron. No, I'm just kidding. You have to go. Listen, all your Sixer stuff, go right to Sean Bernard one because he is constantly updating you guys on everything Sixers and on point at all times. Sean, welcome in, my friend.
Yeah, it's tough not to be hyped after that one. That what I would say is probably the best win of the season so far. Awesome back-to-back win after the Rockets game yesterday to bounce right back, be on the court, and just give the MVP of the league, Joel Embiid, doing his thing against Nikola Jokic. Lived up to the hype. Two of the best players in the NBA. I'm hyped up. Great win.
Great win. And there's more story points that, of course, it was the Godzilla versus King Kong type moment with Jokic and Embiid. There's a point, and they brought it up on the broadcast, and they showed it, they flashed it to the screen in the fourth quarter when Jokic was getting ready to come back in for that last 7-minute stretch. They kind of made eye contact. As soon as Jokic got up to go to check in, to go into the game, Embiid says, okay, then, let's do this.
Mm-hmm.
So sorry, got a little caught off guard here. But there is nothing you can't take away from this game that you can't get excited about. Kind of a postseason look to this game. Hopefully they can play in the postseason like this. But did you expect what you saw from tonight, especially that fourth quarter from the Nuggets? Couple guys really kind of fell apart. Murray especially just can't get a good passing off when he should have taken the shot. Really could have kept Denver in there. Didn't have much success. And what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it was interesting how these teams guarded throughout the game. That we saw, obviously, not a ton of the Joel Embiid versus Nikola Jokic matchup. That there was a lot of the floating. They did the same thing last year with PJ Tucker being the guy that fronting Jokic from the Sixers' perspective. But we're seeing it both ways this time. That we didn't see Jokic matching up with Embiid. A lot of moving around in that direction. So I think everybody was a little bit surprised by that. I kind of expected that going in, but I still thought we would see more of just the King Kong Godzilla matchup, as you said in this one. So a little bit, I guess, some people disappointed by that. I think it honestly threw Jokic off far more than Embiid. I think Embiid's more comfortable when he is a roaming rim protector, a guy that can clean up the mess for others. Jokic, on the other side of things, doesn't quite have that verticality or that ability to make up for others' mistakes, despite all the advanced analytics that people want to throw at me. He's just not that good of a defender. He's just not. And I think Embiid gets the better of him whenever we see those opportunities. And Jokic really looked lost on a lot of the rotations tonight. That there were a couple times where I thought Embiid picked him apart, kind of in the playmaking standpoint, manipulating him in a way that we haven't seen Embiid really be able to do. So I was pretty impressed with the way the Sixers were able to counter it. And I think from the Sixers perspective, it made a lot more sense the way they were playing this kind of flex zone compared to the Nuggets, who it didn't seem really to work for.
Yeah, looks like we're having a couple audio issues. Just trying to check it out here, guys. If everything sounds like it's getting better, just give us a thumbs up here. I made a couple adjustments here. Yeah, I mean, you saw that point where he got called for the 3-second violation because Embiid was off of him and he was moving around. And he did, like you said, he seemed out of sorts. Like he didn't know what to do with himself and got caught for something that not often a big man of his caliber would do. Yeah. So they definitely move things around, and to me, that's the Nick Nurse effect. I don't know about you, like knowing what to do, exploiting the matchups, and bringing them to and bringing the light at the right time. Because this, like we said, this was a back and forth game. It was 78-78 tied going at the. This game looked like it would have been $1.50 apiece, in the long run, and could have went a couple OTs if it possible. Well, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's cool. It's a measuring stick matchup, both from obviously the individual matchup that the Jokic versus Embiid takes the cake with that. And then from the team perspective that we're seeing the Sixers versus Nuggets, as we're getting a little static coming in on this side now. But as we see the Sixers versus Nuggets, the Nuggets obviously the defending champs. And I think your mic just clicked on, so I think we might be in good shape there. But yeah, great from the team and the individual standpoint to see how things match up. And cool just to see like the Sixers really taking this personal, rising the challenge. You can always see it in Joel that Joel takes it personal. He wants this one. These are the type of matchups that he lives for. And despite the Stan Van Gundy all over the place on the mic, making this a brutal listen as a whole, the game itself, you can't ask for much more than that.
No, you can't answer much more than that. Like I said, let's look at these numbers right now, and it's not always about the numbers game. But 41 points again, and Embiid just continues to do what he does best and racking up those games in a row, getting closer to matching up with the great Will Chamberlain and cementing his place in history, which is just
Oh, yeah.
fun to watch all around. Um, but like there's other parts of this game that we take some up and downs. Tyrese Maxey right there. He like I said, Embiid had 41, Maxey had 25, but Tobias Harris, guy gets a lot of grief, and I'm sure where Mitch would love to be here right now to hear this. Gotta give the man his due. But he came up big and played big. And I kind of make a joke on a lot of the shows when we're just talking Sixers. But is it just me, or does Tobias seem to be play well when his name's in trade talks, when he's getting the pressure put on him, and then everything's good, and Tobias Harris is great again, and then Tobias Harris kind of slinks back down. Your thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. He definitely hears the noise as well. That he knows when his name's popping up. That he does deliver when those kind of things happen. And I'll speak on this on two things. For starters, like Tobias Harris was excellent tonight. Finished with 24 points, 8 of 10 shooting. Also added 5 rebounds, 4 assists. I thought he was decisive. He got to the free throw line 6 points, also 6 times. Also had 2 blocks. Those are all kind of rare stats for Tobias Harris for him to be able to do that. He was excellent, and I thought he like kind of kept the team afloat a couple times where it was kind of like a lost possession where he was able to bail them out. So really impressive stuff there. The second part that I hate to have to do this, but the Stan Van Gundy overhype on Tobias Harris. The
Yeah.
quotes of Tobias Harris is one of the most underrated players in the NBA, and the Sixers can't do better than Tobias Harris in a trade. Those both like prevent me from going full in for praising Tobias Harris. Not sure if Tobias Harris's dad/agent got in his ear or what the deal is, but Stan Van Gundy was over the top with it. But I will give Harris the credit that a very good game.
If you check, I believe he brought a little stock in Crumble Cookie lately, so that might be a little, yeah, that might
Insider
be what's
trading.
going on. Yeah, a little
Yeah,
insider trading, but there's other parts of it, and yes, Reggie saying Tobias was going off today when we needed him to.
sure.
That's exactly what we need to, because that's what's supposed to happen. They're going to put their pressure on Embiid. They're going to push Maxey, because Maxey continues to be that rising star, even though he kind of wasn't great at the free throw run. I think it was like 2 for 5 tonight. Missed a couple key ones at the end, but overall, I mean, he's putting up 20 plus points a night like it's nothing, and he continues, like his stock continues to rise. So that means they're going to be a lot of focus, and you're going to have to focus at least 2 guys on Embiid half the time, and then another guy on Maxey. So Tobias should be able to feast.
Mhm.
Tobias should be able to pick the bones of everybody because of that. Um, it's just with me, it's always been a consistency thing with Tobias Harris. Not so much play quality thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And opportunity. Like, in fairness to him, he's been a guy who's gone up and down the pecking order more so than just about any player. That we see moments where he's asked to be like a number 2 option on this team on certain nights. And then we see moments where he's kind of reduced to a catch and shoot kind of role. And that's been this way throughout his Sixers tenure, been this way this year as well when we see injuries, things like that. So it is a little bit of a different challenge that he has to attack night in and night out, which is not the easiest thing as a player.
No, absolutely. But one of the easiest thing to do is when you want to travel with the best, you travel with Philly Sports Trips. That is right. Philly Sports Trips. Check them out. Go to phillysportstrips.com. All great traveling. I don't care if you want to go to Sixers away games, Philly away games, Eagles, you name it, they got it. Union, great trips, an experience bar none, the best you've ever go to. Not just tickets, not just a hotel, not just a flight, but like I said, they put parties upon parties together, and it's so reasonable. So check it out. Go to phillysportstrips.com and tell them EOP sent you. Um, so like I said, they were tied 78-78 at the end. Like I said, I'm looking at this and like, doing the math, could easily go 140, 150 a piece. And it looked like one of those games to me, Sean, that would never end. You know what I mean? Like they were
Yeah.
just going to go back and forth, but that fourth quarter just was a huge moment where where Denver, I don't know if they got fatigued, if the pressure of, being away, this is where that home field advantage needs to come in for the Sixers. and I felt like they should have had a little early on the game. But I mean, best third quarter team in the league, home third quarter team in the league. But they, do you feel like there's any? This is exactly how this type of game with this close matchup should be, or did the Sixers allow them to hang around longer than they should?
Yeah, I was surprised with kind of just the run and gun from both sides early on, that seeing just the pace of play, the way that they were pushing the break, all those things was a big surprise for me, just to see the Nuggets, especially getting up and down, and the Sixers kind of matching that. So I was definitely impressed with the pace early. There was a little bit of kind of a all-star game caliber defense as far as the effort level on this side of things. But for the most part, I think it was just some great shot making, some great offense, and that was the driving force. And then it seemed like the Nuggets just kind of ran out of gas. That, to me, like, Sixers outscoring them 27-17 in the fourth quarter, holding them at under 20 points, especially considering that they had 38 in the first quarter, 40 in the second quarter. So to hold them to 17 in the fourth is really impressive stuff from the Sixers side of things there. And this is, like, I don't care how it's done, that's a great win. Now, this is the defending champion Denver Nuggets. This is a team that I don't think the Sixers even match up to particularly well. We saw the size disadvantage that the Nuggets really dominating on the rebounds, but they got the job done. That's the most important thing. So to me, a statement win. And even if it wasn't pretty from start to finish, I'm very happy with that one.
Let's hit some of these comments. Prince is saying, love Batum guarding Jokic. Fortunately, Jokic started feasting on the tiny players, but Batum had some big defensive plays,
Oh, yeah.
blocking him and a couple other players. He only had 7 points on the night, but it's the defense. He was rebounding, a couple rebounds, but ultimately, he had his presence there was felt, and of course, Marcus Morris Sr., some big moments for him that really was the tide turning moments in the third into the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I mean, for Batum, I mean this completely seriously. For me, he's the third most untouchable player on the Sixers team. That it goes Embiid, Maxey, and Nico Batum. That he just does all the little things that this team need. He's an absolutely perfect role player for a championship contending team. That block and that little stare down at the end was just cold blooded, and he had that weird, bizarre catch and shoot three that he's so good at, that I've never ever seen an NBA player or any basketball player be good at the way he is. But that was awesome. He plays off Embiid incredibly well, and he has more scrap in him than I think I ever gave him credit. That there is a nastiness that he plays with that I didn't really know he had in him. So shout out Nico Batum, incredibly important to this team, and I want him around for the long haul. He's going to win this Sixers team a playoff game.
Yeah, I think he's going to be big for us in those moments, because it's the whole thing we said about with this trade when James Harden left and they brought these guys, and we thought we were just getting kind of like pieces of puzzles that we're probably going to trade away or not be around. But how Nick Nurse has definitely put this team together and found, and, like, I want to say exploited the best parts of them. You see that in Batum. I mean, he's
Yeah.
and Marcus Morris Sr. I mean, what's he been 13 years in the league now? I mean, the guy continues to dazzle, and probably will become bigger down the stretch of this second half of the year. Hitting a couple more. Reggie saying wrong. Tobias plays well in contract years. Yeah, that's probably not wrong either. Shout out Sean, man. Never a day off. Everything, my guy. That's right. If you're, like I said, if you're not following him or you're not seeing him on social media, especially Twitter, you're just not on there. You're just missing it. I love that they did not feel like the back-to-back game, full
Yeah.
energy on both sides. Yeah, I would like to see how this works out, because, I mean, Melton is a guy who's going to, they said at least the next 3 games he's going to be out.
Mhm.
Still having lumbar problems. Like, I don't know if they're going to just kind of like start easing him in, like a couple days off, couple days on at this point. And Rocco's still out since December with the knee, and the knee sounds like it was swelling back up. So things to keep an eye on. And Melton, big piece of my eye, not
Yeah.
having him around, coming off the bench or even when in starting moments when you need him.
Yeah, definitely. And tonight was not a night that it was evident that they missed him, but he absolutely would have helped this team, and he's here. And he's a big time player when he is there. The athleticism, the defensive ability. It sucks the back injury, that we know that backs kind of linger, and that's one of those tough ones. And for Melton specifically, he's been dealing with on and off back injuries for really the past 2 years now. So I do feel like bad for him as a human being just dealing with that. And yeah, it sounds like that this is more of a preventative, that they're shutting him down for 3 games, that if they absolutely needed him, he could have played. But this is something that they want to get over with and have him good to go for the rest of the year. So hopefully that is the case after this stretch.
Reggie said the only player he would trade is Tobias for, Laurie Siakam or somebody, which I get that to a point, yeah. But do you worry about trading even a guy like Tobias Harris when you see a game like tonight with from a chemistry standpoint?
Yeah, I'll say my list is longer than Laurie and Siakam for sure when it comes to
Yeah.
Tobias, but it is that battle for chemistry that you have to weigh. It's there's two main things with Tobias. Is the chemistry side of things, that he is one of the more well-liked guys in the locker room, has been one of the more stabilizing forces in the locker room, and a guy that just is kind of a connector and a leader on this whole team as a whole. So you don't want to mess with that if that's that important to that team. And then the other side of thing, it is still that contract that you do see the light at the end of the tunnel for coming off the books, bringing on that cap relief. So you have to weigh that as you kind of consider these trades too. But if he keeps playing like this, that's the exact version of Tobias Harris that they need.
Who do you guys want on the deadline? I feel like we're stuck with Toby and haven't just accepted at this point, but maybe get a better role player. Who would you who is Sean who's on Sean Menard's wish list at this point coming into February?
I've talked myself into DeJounte Murray pretty strongly, that I think that would solve a lot of problems as a secondary ball handler, a guy that can play off max. He has the defensive chops in theory, although he's been pretty bad in Atlanta defensively. He was still a good defender in San Antonio. So I would say DeJounte Murray is probably my number one, but I'm still kind of flip-flopping and debating on how big of a splash I think this team needs.
Prince and we kept missing free throws, and Oubre almost gift wrapped the game. Should have been up. Should have been up. Okay. But yeah, I mean, there was a couple moments, got a little tight at the end than it should be. That I don't know. I caught a little ticky tack foul where they got with the three and gave him the three foul shots. But yeah, there was moments that this team almost did give it away. But that, I mean, not to be cliche, it is a game of runs. It is. I mean, look at Denver. They can look back and look at where they gave the game away. Well, ultimately, thank God we came out on the other end of the 126-121 victory, but it could have been a 10 and more 12-point lead easily at the end of this game. Guys, I want to remind you that also this show is brought to you by Sherry'sTickets.com. That's right, Sherry'sTickets.com. Family owned and operated since 1946. Forget the other guys. They are going to bamboozle you at checkout. They're going to hit you with hidden fees upon hidden fees. They won't do that. The price you see on the screen is the price you'll pay. Great prices on the hard to get tickets. Save an additional 10% off by using that great promo code EOP10. That's right. EOP10 will save you 10% off at sherrystickets.com, and already great prices. So let's get to it here. Player of the game for Sean Bernard. Who do you got? I mean, I think there's some obvious ones here, but I'll let you go first. Who do you got as your player of the game?
Yeah, I'm taking the layup here that it is Joel Hans Embiid, and we know that he shows up for these type of moments, these matchups. I remember him giving Jokic 47 last year, but this was a little bit of a different way that he did it. And the thing about Embiid for me is Joel Embiid, he has more ups and downs than I would say your average NBA superstar. But when he plays his best basketball, there's nobody in the NBA that can touch him, Nikola Jokic included. That there is a level of two-way dominance that he possesses that no one else in the NBA can reach. And tonight was one of those nights where we saw that on full display. The playmaking was on a level that we have not seen that very often. The scoring, he's purely unguardable when he gets it going in the way he did. And defensively, there are things that he can do that no other big man can kind of have the whole package of. So for me, Joel Embiid is the player of the game tonight. And this man is absolutely the front runner for MVP as long as he plays enough games.
Yeah. So we'll hit a couple more comments here and I'll get to mine. Batum would walk into LA Fitness and nobody would notice. Then he stepped on the court and cooked. Yeah, I mean that's what you need from these kind of guys. I mean, one thing we can always say, like we felt like every year it was like kind of the same ride on a wheel situation where, oh, we need another superstar. Oh, we need another superstar. We went through superstar to somehow get these jagged puzzle pieces to fit, and it never worked. When we only need is more role players. How many years have we sat here and said this bench is light? After the starting five, it falls off big time, and that's where guys were bouncing us in the second round. They were exhausted, they couldn't keep up with it, and then if they didn't have anybody to come in who could at least take over and cook for a little while, you know. So having guys like Pat Bev and my guy, I'm going to go here right now with you. I will tell you that it's probably just because, of course, Embiid's the easy one. I mean, I'm going to have to give it to Harris for all the times we give Harris a lot of grief. I mean, we're just talking about this game in a nutshell, of course. So in this game, he stepped up big, some big defensive plays, as well as on top of it, he just scored the second most points behind. You're always going to be second most behind Embiid unless he's just not playing that night. So I will give you my player of the game will be Tobias Harris, and that one goes to Mitch Kofsky, gift wrapped. I know he liked every last second of it, but it's yeah. I mean, how do you not? I mean, when he steps up, it's like when he's good, but when he's bad, he's invisible. Like, I mean, we feel like
Yeah.
we said the same thing about Ben Simmons. He can easily disappear into the shadows, but it's like kind of the devil you know versus the devil you don't know at this point, and kind of to the chemistry thing here. Um, Let me hit some more of these. Same, he's a dog. We need those pieces because the underpaid role players we hadn't weren't good enough. Fair enough. I mean, yeah, I mean, if I never see Korkmaz hit the only time I want to see the Korkmaz jersey on the floor is when they're up by 40. Like we can do that type of thing. That's he wants he wants to get traded out. I want him to go. Like I'll drive him to the airport at this point. I don't even hate Korkmaz. It's just like I'm just tired of hearing about him. Toe VP. Okay, we'll give you that. We'll give you that. Siakam probably going to end up in Indy. Yeah,
Yep.
I think that's a fair assessment. Hi, Steve. Do you think Tobias should come back for less if we don't trade him?
I think there's a chance of that actually happens. That's going to absolutely break some people. I have really no feel for what like his market value is at this point, and honestly, how the rest of the season goes will probably dictate that in a major way. But if Tobias comes back at the right price point, I'm open to it. It can't be on 40 million a year as is currently the case, but if he's down for a cheaper contract, maybe in that $15 million range or something like that, a Nico Batum type contract or even a little bit more, he probably deserves. So something like that, I would be interested in, but I'm also would not be heartbroken if that is not the case either.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I feel like Tobias Harris gets more criticism because of the contract.
Yeah, absolutely.
If he had a medium middle of the road NBA contract, I don't think we're ever having these conversations about trading him like we are. I think people just felt that his money was wrapping up the ability to maybe have two good players or another good superstar. But I think now that we're past the superstar thing, like I said, I always feel like when I talk about Tobias Harris, I have to say, um, I like Tobias Harris, but there's always a but in it.
Right.
And it's always comes back to the numbers. It is the absolute numbers game. And the fact that at times he's not always there. He's not always he's I go back to the consistency factor with him. Consistency is always key with any sport. I don't care what sport you're playing, but in basketball definitely. And he can be a dangerous weapon because you can we with Maxey kind of arising as that superstar. And I know some people kind of get on me for calling him a superstar at this point, but to me, I feel like he's a rising superstar. He might not hit a superstardom just yet, but I feel like he's getting there. Now you already have your star. You don't have to get that James Harden. You don't have to worry about we let Ben Simmons go or anything like that. People always ask me still, would you take Ben Simmons back at this point? I said if it wasn't a mental thing with him, like he was just mentally couldn't handle it being here, I would take him back at a deal because his defense is that good. But no, I don't want him here because it would just cause a problem. But with him, like no, I mean I'd take Tobias Harris back for a reasonable deal.
Yeah, and Philadelphia ran Ben Simmons out of town, according to Stan Van Gundy on the broadcast today. So
Yeah, I heard that.
yeah,
I
but
believe
yeah,
I believe he booked his own trip on that one a long time
yeah.
before we ran him out.
I think that's a much more fair assessment of how things actually went down there. But yeah, it is with Tobias. It is always the contract because there is expectation that gets tied to the dollar sign that when you're paid more, you need to produce more. And Tobias Harris is exactly who he's always been, that you can't pay him to be something he's not. That's honestly not Tobias's fault. That's more on the Sixers for handing him that type of contract. It was the right place, right time kind of situation. But I do think that with a lower dollar figure that everyone's a little easier on him, no doubt.
Yeah. And the other thing is, can I just say, I always bring this up, and just watching it, you saw that big three. I think it was from Batum in the beginning of the fourth quarter there that really started getting the Sixers on that roll.
Mhm.
It isn't pretty, but it's so. But when it goes in, it looks pretty. Like when it comes off his hand, and Sean, you cover more basketball than I do. Like it's like he doesn't even catch it. Like somebody, it's like he stops in midair and it just bounces off his hand. Like he doesn't catch and shoot. It just shoots off itself. Um, we've seen it from a couple guys throughout NBA history, but it doesn't happen often. But it just seems like an anomaly to me.
Yeah, it's very, very rare. And the way he's able to like catch without going into a dip or any sort of go down form, I've never seen a player like that. And he specifically is a guy who has mastered that and is known for it around the NBA. And that matters just in the speed of getting it off, the way that it's so quick on the catch and release just because of that factor, I would argue that he's the quickest catch and release guy in the NBA. And there will be moments where that makes a difference, where that's the make or break for whether you get a shot off or not. So very cool how he can do that. Obviously, very effective next to Joel, who's one of the most double team dominant players across the NBA. So a perfect fit there, and just a really cool characteristic as a whole.
There you go, Mitch going. Toby does great when Dibes is not here. Yeah, right. I mean, I thought I know Mitch may be the Tobias Harris head of his fan club. And let's see here, we got a couple more. If Toby made 13 million like he should be making, nobody would label him the crumble cookie. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
it's sometimes his comments, like you can see his frustration when he's talking into the media and stuff at times when they bring it up. And listen, he's human, so I'd expect that to happen. But it's like I said, maybe it's that pressure, the pressure of holding up to that contract. And I always tell people, like, oh, Tobias stole money. I'm like, no, he didn't. He was given. You steal money. If you walk into a bank with a ski mask and a gun, that's stealing. When the bank walks out and hands you a bag of cash with the old dollar sign on it, that's giving. And the Sixers gave that to him because they panicked because they couldn't get Jimmy Buckets locked up. So they had to do something to save face. And like I said to anybody, if anybody's boss came up to them and said, you know what, we're going to pay you 4 or 5 times the amount of money you should get paid to do your job, are you going to tell them, no, boss, that's not right? No, you're going to say, bring it. And that's what happened. So I've never blamed Tobias for any of that, but it is what it is. How does Stan Van Gundy still have a job with TNT? He is horrible as an announcer. You know what, to me, I feel like Stan Van Gundy is doing like he's doing like an impression of an old school basketball announcer. Like he does, like he's doing it on purpose at this point. Like I think he's like, well, I'm living up by my name now. Let me just see if I can push the limits and anybody actually will fire me for it.
I lost it tonight I was going at Stan on Twitter a little bit, which I have never done to announcer before, but I hit my breaking point tonight with him just really going at Embiid for like a 5-minute. And I get like I understand your point. You're not necessarily wrong in this, but to just like hammer the dude about the playoff, kind of the way his numbers go down in the middle of him having like an excellent basketball game and in the middle of an actual basketball game that you're supposed to be calling. Like, this is not the Stan Van Gundy podcast. This is not ESPN First Take. You're calling the Sixers versus Nuggets. Make it about the game, a game that was an excellent basketball game by all accounts. So taking away from that, I hated. I thought it was disrespectful to the game as a whole. Thought he did a horrible job on the mic tonight. And yeah, I totally agree that I was very frustrated by the Stan Van Gundy still in the show.
And the other thing is like if I'm Stan Van Gundy or anybody else at this point, I'm going, well, look at how this game's going. It's like I said, two of the biggest names in the NBA going up against each other. It was playing out. It wasn't like one-sided at any point. This game came down to the wire. I'm Stan Van Gundy. I'm mailing this in. Like I don't have to add my Van Gundyisms into the situation. I'm just rolling with it
for itself. Yeah,
exactly. And like you said, call it for what it is. The problem is with the thought is that somebody is going to pay him more than we want. But the plus side, I guess, plus side is that we probably sign Siakam next year with the space created by Toby. Listen, Toby's contract coming off is going to create space no matter what. It will not be, trust me, it will not be Tobias Harris who takes up that much money. Could he come back for a smaller amount? But somebody probably will pay him. I mean, that's the thing is, and I think maybe the Van Gundy thing, the one thing, if you want to take anything away from it, that might be what a national look like. A lot of people I've talked to when I do interviews with people from people outside of Philly talking about the Sixers, talking about Tobias Harris, they kind of go, you Philly guys really beat up on this poor guy, and his value in the eyes of the national media is definitely much higher than it is here in Philly.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair. And like, he definitely gets a bad rap more than he deserves. And we've mentioned all the reasons why. I do respect Tobias for sticking it through. There really hasn't been any big flare ups. There was the one moment where there was that kind of, like him going back at the fans. But for the most part, he's hung in there. And he outside of it, the longest tenured Sixers at this point, it is Joel Embiid, it is Furkan Korkmaz, and it is Tobias Harris. So you got to give him credit for the stability and sticking around.
No, absolutely. And guys, I remind you that this show is also brought to you by the Cherry Injury Firm. That's right, Cherry Injury Law. David R. Cherry will fight for your rights if you get hurt at work, motor vehicle accidents, personal injury, and criminal law. Dave is the man with the plan to fight for your rights. David R. Cherry call him at 610-565-0300. go to cherryinjurylaw.com or easily pick up the phone again at 610-565-0300. And let's hit a couple more comments and then we'll get on out of here, guys, because what a big night for, like I said, for the Sixers. Because always the question is, they can beat up on the good guy or the medium to lesser teams. Can they keep doing it? And they hung in there. And at no point did this team look like it got away from anybody. Like I said, it was definitely a back and forth. I think the biggest lead of the night came from the Sixers, 8 or 9. But overall, I think the most lead that the Nuggets had was maybe 6 or 7. So that's the kind of game you expect from them. Like I said, it was a playoff type atmosphere. It's a snow and icy night out here in Philly if you're not around here. So all the people who went down here to see this matchup. And thank God that not one of those guys decided to sit the night out, because there would probably been a riot out there. Like I said, let's hit a couple more of these and then we'll roll on out of here, guys. Let's see. Reggie said when he went at Embiid, then completely flipped it. Absolutely. He started talking about, choking in the playoffs and he could do it here, but can he do it in the playoffs? And then as soon as he started going to roll and Nikola just couldn't answer him, it definitely became the Embiid show. Embiid went off right after he changed his sides immediately. I hate saying Van Gundy because every time the Sixers play on TNT, he bashes them or makes smart remarks about the Sixers. Listen, we always who was Joe Buck? Remember the Eagles and all that? Joe Buck, everybody swore, and I remember I was the 2008 Phillies World Series run. It was the second game in Tampa. And they were having one of the announcers, it wasn't Joe Buck, but one of the announcers was talking about Philly. And you could tell they didn't like Philly. The way they were talking about it, he's like, oh, well, I heard they have good cheesesteaks there. That's the thing that he could brought about Philly that he liked. So you can definitely see the bias in him. But honestly, to me at this point, I kind of enjoy it because it gives good tweets after that all said and done. Nixon, I felt like a playoff game, one of the best games on basketball I watched in a minute, besides Van Gundy on the mic. What does he have against Joel? That I guess we'll never know. Todd, yeah, Sirianni blows. Thanks, Todd. He deserves it though. Let's see. In the Hawk series, we killed Ben, but Tobias was just as bad. Yeah, no, I mean that. I think it was. If it wasn't for Ben Simmons, he probably would have been crucified more. But because Ben's was more glaringly annoying and
Yeah.
it just continued. It probably did save his hide a little bit from that.
And I know he's remembered very fondly, but Seth Curry was a straight up traffic cone defensively in that series. Like Kevin Huerter, I think he was averaging like 27 that series, and we're talking about Kevin Huerter here. So
Yeah,
it wasn't only Ben Simmons as much as sometimes history remembers it that way.
no, it's that moment. It was that one moment when
Right.
Ben Simmons could have went up with this easy layup or slam, and he didn't take it, and that's what everybody remembers. Like you said, I do remember. Like I was complaining about everybody. I still have my notes from that night in one of my pads back here, and I remember looking at it. I'm sitting there going like, it is Ben Simmons. And I think I went even on the day or two after and talked about it. And I said it was Ben Simmons, but there was a lot of fall apart from this team. But Ben Simmons, it's almost like an epidemic at that point with Ben Simmons and guys like that. Like there is. Listen, we talk about with all sports, culture is a huge thing. Culture changes. And don't tell me that the Nick Nurse to Doc Rivers culture change wasn't a huge difference. I mean, I remember when Brett Brown was still here, and people thought I hated Brett Brown. People thought I just didn't like Brett Brown. I said I have nothing against Brett Brown as a coach or in any personal way, but I have when a guy when you're made to lose, it's hard for you to flip that switch.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I looked at it. Like I just didn't think they were going to win with him because of that reason. And I think Doc Rivers was so stuck in his way. He thought he had his master plan. I'm going to take these 3 or 4 guys. I'm going to make them the best. And then I'm going to care about nobody else. And he really did. He didn't care about developing anybody else. But Nick Nurse, what we've seen so far, and like I said, it's still early on. Something could change. We could end up hating him as much as the next guy. But Nick Nurse has found a way of making all these pieces fit in the fit the cogs into the system where they all work, and you can't ask much more than that.
Yeah, and he's kind of to some extent doing a lot with nothing. And what I mean by that is there have been hurdles like no D'Anthony Melton, no Robert Covington. There's been nights without Joel. There's been injuries that he's had to figure out on the fly, and it's fun watching him kind of have the creative brain and ability to think on the fly, change things up, and still have success as a team. So I've been nothing but impressed by Nick Nurse. he's been lived up to every bit of my expectation thus far. And to me, probably the biggest reason for optimism for this Sixers team, as far as from last year to this year, is Nick Nurse right there.
Yeah. And like I said, I'll be honest with you. When the coaching change was coming in, he wasn't my number one guy. I wasn't against having him, but he wasn't my number one guy. But ultimately, he has done a lot with less than most coaches have had from a talent standpoint in the past here in Philly. Guys, I want to thank you all for joining us. I want to thank Sean, as always, for doing a great post-game show here with EOP at the Get Process. Like I said, if you're just joining us, the Sixers won 126 to 121. Was one hell of a game. It's one of those games I would tell you to go back and grab the 10-minute highlight video, or watch it again if you didn't get to see the whole thing. If you're just hearing it for the first time, or you caught the last couple minutes or whatever the game. This is one of those games you may want to go back and watch, because I know I'm going to go watch it anyway, because I'm going to have to take my notes again and check over them for coming shows and all that stuff. But it is one I'm not going to complain about having to do. So check it out. So he is Sean Bernard at Sean_Bernard. That's BARNARD1 on Twitter. Like I said, he is my go-to. If he's not your go-to, make him your go-to. He's covering everything Sixers and basketball in the city. Sean, tell them where they can find you.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Sean_Bernard1. Super active on there, so you can check that out. Also, we'll be dropping a video on Sixers Digest over on YouTube about this game as a whole, the Joel Embiid domination that we just saw. We'll have an episode of Picks and Roll with Sean Brace over at Fox Sports The Gambler coming tomorrow as well. So stay posted for that. That'll be live streaming on Twitter, YouTube, as well as played over the Fox 1025 airwaves. And around on Instagram and YouTube as Pick Swap Media as well. So check that out, and appreciate everybody for tuning in.
Yeah, and check out Fox Sports together. Sean Brace, great guy too. Guys, these guys know their stuff. Check them out. Watch them, guys. Check us out. Follow us on all social media at EOP Sports on Twitter. Check us out on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, you name it. We got it. So also go to www.eopsports.com. All the shows live. You can check everything out from all the different shows, articles we got up there. eopsports.com, and sign up for that newsletter so you get every Friday everything you missed in this week. Other than that, he's Sean Bernard. I'm Big Al, and we are out of here.